be able to tell us? Is that in Slack?
I am not sure.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our No Code North workshop series. Our mission at No Code North is twofold. First, to build a community of Canadian Webflowers and no code enthusiasts. And second, to showcase Canadian talent to the rest of the world, as well as international talent for our workshop series. We host workshops, demos, and panel discussions on Fridays at noon Eastern in the Lodge, our gather space. And once a month, we host the Northern Showcase here on our YouTube channel.
Today, we are pleased to have Marcel Deelen share his Webflow framework, small, medium, large, with us. Marcel has been a graphic designer since 1991 and got into web design in 1997. And he's been using Webflow since 2013, so he's one of the originals. He started developing the small, medium, large framework while digital design director for TBWA Iceland, and now is the digital director for Otis Bay Studio. We'll let you take things from here, Marcel.
Thank you, Penny, for the introduction. It's good to be here, and thanks for the invite. It's really nice. Yeah, so small, medium, large is the framework I've been working with for quite a while now. And like you said, Webflow since 2013, like 1.5 months after Webflow went live. And since 2015, been using it in my day-to-day work as a digital design director for TBWA back in Iceland. And then in 2021, I made the move to become completely Webflow dev. Before, I was still doing also design work. And I got kind of tired of doing the whole process because every job takes so long before you can start a new one. So I was pretty happy that Webnik hired me in München to become the Webflow dev for them and kind of set it up with them. And since 2023, so in October, so actually 2 months ago, or 2 weeks ago, I started in Otis Bay Studio there as the digital director, and then purely focused on Webflow development work. And Otis Bay Studio is a relative new business, and we're trying to make it as big as we can. And hopefully within a year's time, we are aiming to be the biggest Webflow dev studio in Holland, in the Netherlands. So yeah, that is our big goal. After that, we have even bigger goals, but I will keep them a secret. And yeah, and the framework, small, medium, large, I kind of start with that in 2015. But still being very messy and just trying to get the job done and not really thinking it as a framework. And then in 2018, I really found the need to structure it more and be a bit of a better developer for myself and for the sake of the people that came after me. So with that, small, medium, large became a thing that I really focused on. And yeah, it's kind of based upon 3 things that are sort of gone through my entire life. That is efficiency, adaptability, and scalability. Efficiency and adaptability is really something I think that is the core of small, medium, large. And efficiency, yeah, because I've been this graphic designer in high working environments, stressful environments at agencies, and back in the days when you had print and not just internet, you really had to deal with hard deadlines. Okay, in half an hour the paper closes, so you need to push out an ad. And I was always the person that they came to saying like, okay, Marcel, can you help us out? Nobody else can still do it. We only have half an hour. So they were always standing on my desk for doing these magical tricks. So yeah, in that sense, I always strive to be as efficient as I could because I knew that I don't have the time to be not efficient. And my hands don't move any faster than anybody else. Their hands is just a way of always finding a way to go from A to B with as little clicks as possible for anything that you do on the computer. Just try to be as efficient as you can. And then adaptability, that kind of comes out of my work, the way I work. I work as a freelancer and at agencies. and I don't do the design work, so I'm dealing with a whole bunch of different designers that all work with different structured, even some in Illustrator still. And so that also means that if I do framework, it has to be able to adapt to all these different designs that I get. These designs, they go all over the place. 2 weeks ago, I got a design with 24 columns. That was a new one for me. And I was able to do it without having to create any new classes. So even though the system is a 12-based column system, I could still do a 12-4-column grid in it. That was quite a little victory. So yeah, so this adaptability and this efficiency also comes out in the scalability, of course, because it just benefits from it. It makes it the lightest framework that we have, I think, in Webflow. I mean, and at the same time, it's a very complete framework. There are a lot of predefined classes in it. That also means that if you scale your website, if you build a big website, you don't need a whole lot of new classes. And Corey was so nice to make this graph when he was presenting Mast, so I steal it from him and and sketched in SML. So you see here on the left side how the clonables are, how the pure CSS file, when you clone it and you download the CSS file, how heavy they are. And SML is there at the bottom. And second in line is client first, but client first, of course, doesn't have a layout system, so it just grows magnificently. Mast is pretty good, still one of the low ones. And then Lumos is pretty okay. Also, Knockout is kind of following the same curve as SML. SML goes a little bit more steep. Well, the sides grow bigger. So yeah, I was quite happy when I figured this out. I thought, oh, okay, it's actually pretty nice that SML is so small. I didn't realize that it was that. So thanks, Corey. And then we can go into the details. It is like so many systems, it's a 12-column flexbox layout. So I don't like to work with grid because what I don't like about grid is that you cannot type a class name and suddenly it spans across 2 columns or 2 rows. So for me, grid is way too much still handwork, and yeah, with that, yeah, that for me is not how I like to work. I just like to type in the style and poof, it's there. The only times that I use grid is when I just have to stack things on top of each other. Then I just make a grid 1 by 1 column and 1 row, and then I just have my divs on top of each other. I mean, that's pretty much the only times that I use grid. What else did we have? Let me see. Also, another thing is I use spacer divs. It's not for everybody's taste, and I always am a bit thoughtful when I say that, because I know that people prefer margins and paddings. I don't prefer margin paddings, and the reason why I use spacer divs, and I think also it's because of this, is also why SML is so light, because you don't have a class for left margin, class for right margin, class for bottom and top. But yeah, just have a div that is a square block in different sizes. But the main reason why I use it is that you see these divs in the navigator in Webflow. So when you come into a project, you immediately see like, oh yeah, okay, I use this spacer above and below my container. I use this spacer here and there. So you immediately see all the spaces that are being used, and like that you are way more consequent with your spacers. You don't need to click on an item to see a combo class and then see, oh yeah, okay, it's this kind of space. Then all the responsive classes are also predefined. They all start with BP for breakpoint -s, and that is then tablet. Then breakpoint -xs is landscape, and xxs is portrait mobile. So we keep in style with the SML language. like throughout the whole framework, you all the time see these LMS namings, which makes it very constant. You can, same for header sizes, text sizes, shadow sizes. It's all done with this same logic. And these predefined responsive classes, they control everything already. So you can control the width of your column. So if it's a 4-column layout on desktop and 2-column layout on tablet and a 1-column layout on the mobile landscape, then you can just type in your classes and it's done. You don't need to create anything, any new classes. Same goes for layout directions. If it's a horizontal in desktop, a vertical in mobile, then that's also already predefined. Hiding and showing elements, same thing. And then a big selling item, I would say, is that I'm all the time using it. I'm building 8 hours per day websites with this framework, and I'm using exactly the same clonable as there is for the whole Webflow community. So the moment I update the framework, it's updated for everybody. So, and I try to do it more or less at the same speed as Webflow. So I try to follow them within a week when I think an update comes out that is good to incorporate. Then I just try to do it as quick as I can. Like now it already has a pre-built component slot system in it. It's already ready for when build mode gets released at the conference. Pretty sure that that's going to be one of the releases. And like now also we got an update that there are now header level props. So in the coming week, I'm gonna put those into the components. That's like a very, very huge, nice update, I find. So yeah, that is kind of SML in a nutshell. I think it's good to go actually to the website. Where is it? There, it's here, of course. Sorry, hold on. There we are. Okay, so smallmediumlarge.com, that's where you find the clonables. It has a general introduction. There's a small short guide for developers, so that goes a bit deeper in the logic of it all. And here you see also the spacers explained, why they are like that. And a bit more, and the variables and the components that are in it with the props. And then there's also a guide for marketing teams. This is more focused on working with components and of course working with the slots. Because in my mind, the component slot is really a tool for marketing teams and not for developers, but opinions differ. So yeah, so these are pre-built components, and then here you already have the slots that follow the same system, an L, M, and an S component block. And then as always, all the updates that are being done. So actually it was released in 1st of November 2023. And the reason, but probably is nice to say, the reason why I made it public was because I started to see more and more job openings that's asked for client first. And I thought, oh my God, if that is going to be like the golden standard, then I'm going to be out of a job because I don't want to work with client first. So I thought, okay, we need more variety in our business. And so I started to work on it, and then actually I think 1 or 2 months before I released, Must also came out. So I was like, okay, we're in good company. So yeah, that was kind of my motivation to say, okay, I'm just going to make it public and for everybody to use it or get inspired by. Yes.
Hey, sorry. Just one question about that for everyone there, and just curious about your opinion. What are some of the things that you've improved on from client first that you didn't like about the framework? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not so much that I think, well, it's like a delicate subject because I really think that people should choose the framework that works best for them. And I find it something very personal, I think, because it's like the way you work, so it has to be a framework that more or less follows your way of thinking and your own logic. And what I didn't particularly like with Client First is their lack of layout classes. And I think that what I see with Client First is that you create so many levels of divs and so many classes without actually styling those classes, just as a guide for the client who is, thanks to component slots, never going to see those classes anymore. So it's also, yeah, I think now it's getting slightly outdated, that way of thinking that a client needs to understand the classes. I think a dev needs to understand the classes and the client needs to understand the components. But yeah, that was my fear with Client First becoming the standard. Andy.
Yeah, two questions. So the first one, so you have the change logs, so you have the recent updates. How else can folks using the framework get out, be informed of when there's changes? Or do you have like a mailing list or something as well?
Yeah, Twitter is always good. I'm highly active on Twitter, and so yeah, everything will be mentioned there. I don't have a newsletter; it's just I don't have the time for it, to be honest.
Gotcha. And if anyone has like suggestions for the framework, maybe like requests or whatever,
Yeah, sure.
what's the best way for them to share that with you?
Yeah, just reach out on Twitter. My DMs are open, so I'm always interested in hearing all the people's thoughts and also things that I don't like. It's it's super insightful. Like I said, this is like such a private project. It's just the way that I work, and by no means I know everything and 100% convinced that my way is the only way. I'm just, I'm just this guy that set this up, and this is the way I'm working, and my background makes it to be something very focused on efficiency. But that doesn't mean that that it's the best system out there. It's just my personal handwriting in a way. Yeah, thanks for the questions. It's quite nice to sort of think about these things because like I said, it's such a personal project in a way. It's just what I do, and now there are the co-workers that are going to have to work with it as well. So everybody's kind of adapting to it, and yeah, it's nice. It's nice to see this little idea become bigger and gets it be put in the hands of other people and hear feedback from them as well. Yeah.
So another question for you: going through this experience of building the framework, what have you learned?
I've learned that I'm a total nerd when it comes to logic. No, I've learned that yeah, I don't know. I've learned that that even though you just follow your heart and your instinct, actually a lot of it does make sense also in the other people's mind. And I think we all kind of suffer from this. What's it called? This what's it called? This imitator feeling.
Imposter syndrome?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, I know so many people here in this industry are fearing they're having this imposter syndrome because we're so much focusing on sitting behind our desk, working from home or from our small agency and doing our own thing. And we really don't know if what we are doing actually makes sense in the big world out there. So we all, but then to build this and see all the people and hear feedback and also being in discussions with with Alicia, for instance, it's like so nice to hear how she looks at things and to get this feedback, and together also realize that there are many ways to think about things, and there are many roads that lead to Rome, and this is just one of them. So small, medium, large. What is a bit weird probably is that there are 3 different versions, and that has to do that I'm dealing with different designers. So I get Figma files designed in 1440, 1680, or 1920, and since the RAM scales from 1 to down or up, depending on what clonable you pick, that's why there are 3 of them. It's just another way for me to be a little bit more lazy and not having to adapt all those things, and just clone one and immediately hit the ground running. So when you have cloned, then of course the first thing, design. So the first thing you of course do is go into your variables and change them all to the design, or delete. Now you can handily delete a whole bunch of colors. That's super cool. And we can now change them from in order, also very nice. So yeah, here's where you start. You first do your colors, then maybe your spacing system is slightly different. Your gaps between the rows, or between the columns, is also in here. There are 3 sizes. This is relatively new. I don't think it's completely bug-free yet. Font size I don't put in here because I'm still waiting for the breakpoints to come. And you're just looking at no code conf. Let's hope we get breakpoints in variables. That will be super cool. And then when you're done with that, then you have the whole, this is like, you can always immediately throw all this away, of course, because you don't need this. Oh, that can go. This is your starting point. And then you have to go, of course, into type. So you see there are all these style sheets here, and they are style sheets, but at the same time, they also function as a way to explain the system. So they're always, in every website that you clone, or every framework that you clone, you have these pages that are just helpful for when you hand it over to a different developer. So here, of course, this is just styles. So of course you have all the H's and the headers, and you have different text sizes. So you see again XL, L, M, S, XS. Sometimes you need an XXS, sometimes you need an XXL. So you just adapt that. And then here you have the text weight. So sometimes you need a light, so then you can add a light. Or you need a black, but then don't call it black, because black is a color. So that should be text heavy in that case. And then when you have done all those things, then you can go into your colors, and here, if you make new colors, then you need to change them. But of course, if you use the same system as a primary 25, then also the variable, of course, is already changed. So this is automatically changed for you. But if you need new colors, like you have a 4 different color system in the brand, then of course you need to make them here the classes. And there's a layout page where you see that it's actually not to set anything. It's just pure, okay, like how does it work? What are the columns? How do they relate to the row and to the container? And if you have a good enough resolution on your screen, you see here also the gray lines of the grid. So the column grid is there too, which adapts, of course, if you change the gap in between the columns. And of course, this grid is also changed. And the grid is not, of course, the Webflow grid. It's actually here. It's just a collection, a component, I mean. And so that's that. Here are the different gap sizes. We have the borrowed one and the small one. And also included is all these settings there. So you can change everything, every layout. And it's still based on the old the old layout panel that we all miss so much. I'm not going to change this because I don't want to change it, because I don't think this thing here makes any sense whatsoever. Unless you are like clicking, then it makes sense. So those styles are also all in there. You don't need to write any new styles to change the layout. Here's the elements page. This is more custom elements. So here you can add more button styles or more form elements or whatever else the design needs. Then we have a page with responsive, which just explains how the responsive classes work. So you can see that this becomes a 3-column. And then here it gets added the mobile, so it becomes a 2-column, and here it gets added the older one, so it becomes a 1-column. So then you get a whole bunch of combo classes that all work together. So if you would only do layout call and layout call 2, so that means that it spans across 2 columns of your 12 columns, and you would then behind that put this one and not these, then it means it will stay 2 on these 2 breakpoints, and it will be a full with column only on mobile portrait. So that's also just explained there. And then we have a page with the pre-build. So here we have all the components with all the props in place, which I'm going to have to update now because we have a new header level props. So those are already there. And the funny thing, of course, is if you adapt this, if you put in the design and you make all the styles, you change all the styles, then of course these components also immediately get changed into the brand. And then finally we have here the component blocks. So these are like with slots in place. And I do a little styling on an empty slot so it becomes more clear. But if you look in here, then you can see that these are really just components in slots. So you can, all these different layouts you can make with components inside slots. So yeah, this is like a very complex one. So we have, but I will go into that in a little bit. So yeah, so that's also all there. And then just because I'm a nerd, we have the glossary that just shows all the classes that are in there. So it should be actually quite a heavy framework, but for some weird reason it's not. Yeah, so I don't know, maybe should I build something quick, a little layout thingy? We have the page wrapper. I use all the time Command K for this. Command E is of course the same thing, but for some reason K is closer to my fingers. So then a section, in there we put a div, we call that container. In that we put another div, which we call row. In that we put another div, and that will be the column. And then we can also say, okay, probably we should put a div here, and we say that that is our spacer, XL, we put it also on top of it. And then we have here our column, and then we can say that this column is 6, so it goes half a column. And we can put in there an H1. We can say that this H1 is actually not as big as it should be. So we just add a class that it makes it smaller. We can add another div, which we call spacer. You can see that I've been using this framework for quite a while, I guess. I'm pretty quick with everything. Text large. Where is it? Text L. There. So let's just make it a bit more text. So like that. And then we can just, since we have here the column, we can just copy it. And let's say that we want this to be a small one. So we make it column 3. And we can do like that. But maybe we want actually here to have 4 blocks under each other. So then we need to put a div around this. And we call that a row. Then we need to put another div in between here. Oh, there. And we can call that a column. Am I doing it right? No, I'm doing it wrong. Wait. We need this, we need that, and the row should be in a div, and this is actually our column, which is 6. So what we do now is we have our first row, so that is 12 column grid. In it we have a column that is 6 columns from the 12 column grid. In that we have another column which is also 6 column grid. In that we have a row, dus that row becomes more or less our new definition of what is 12 columns. So if here I now put in 6, it will be actually the half of this new row. So like that we can put this in, we'll call it 6, and this one, I call it 6, and this one, I will also call it 6. So like that you can have a broad row with a big text, and probably here you have a text small, and probably a heading that is not heading 1 of course, but header 2. And you can say, okay, that's heading probably extra small. So like that you can have these kind of content in there. Let me just be lazy. And then here you could add an image, or put that around the div and say that that is image is 3 by 2. And it is image cover. And the funny thing, like what I do is I don't type image, because if I type image, I get a whole bunch of options. But if I type cover, I only get image cover. And that's also why I don't type layout, because then you get so many things. So it's much better to just type row, because then you know, okay, I get layout row, because that's the only class with row in it. So yes, like this, you can just have a layout like this, for instance, and probably you want a little spacer here as well. So yeah, this is kind of the whole, how the column system work and how easy it is to create a layout. Now, technically, you should also be able to create this layout with the components, with the slots. Shall we give it a try? I'm not that adept with the component slots yet. I think this. So the way it works is it's large. Large is the component that has, let's see, that has this in it. So it has a row, the container outside it, it has the spacers, and it has the section. So whatever needs to go in the row is not there yet. So it's just the outer shell. So in that, since it's L, so in that we need M. So M01. And what is M? M is only the row. I'm saying no, M is only the column. The row is already in L, so M is the column. So this column is XX1. So XX means that it just expands till whatever, you know, if there's another one next to it, then they divide it in 2. And 1 means that in mobile, so X is a tablet, the second X is what it does in mobile landscape, and the third one is what it does in mobile portrait. So mobile portrait, it will just go to full width. And then in S, we can put our content in. Let's see what we have. Let me see, column full, maybe. Okay, let's put another one next to it. And then that doesn't need this in it. But this will then have SO1 in it, because SO1 is sort of the old one out in the collection, because S doesn't actually have content that goes into a column, but actually it has another row. So with that, we should be able to put in an M component. Let me see, I can actually probably just put this one in there. And then in this in this we put another S1. And that should be a minimal thing. And then we have here our column, so we can now paste that. Wait, I should probably have used a different one. But we can also do it like this, I think. Yeah. So there we kind of have the same layout as here. So yeah, it's possible to build this also with components. And this is, I think, what will become the real power of component slots. Where you see that, okay, put this in the hand of your marketing team that is completely unaware of any classes. And you have these components, they're already completely according to the brand. And they can pretty much create any layout that they think they need. And of course, then if you get a design, and of course you need to sort of alter the components to make it fit with the different layouts that you have. And you probably want to limit also your marketing team that they don't completely go wild and create all kinds of layouts that are completely different from anything that already exists. But yeah, I think this is the real power of where components with slots come into play. And I don't really see it as an option for developers to use, because I think using a component is just as easy as using a class. It has the same, it's already predefined. So why limit your developers with components? And then with that, I think with components, you also get then the problem like, okay, then everything should become a component. So you need a component for a button, you need a component for a header. And I don't think that is the way this is going to be. And in build mode, you can only put components into slots. And there's a reason for that, because in build mode, same as in editor, you don't have access to any of the other things. You don't have access to a div. So there's no way you can you will ever be able to put a div in a container slot. There's just no logic behind it. And the only logic that there is that if a developer already puts something in there, and that then becomes part of the component, and then the marketing team can put a component below or above that. That would be the only thing that I see. Okay, yeah, maybe then it will be handy to have these component slots also be able to carry regular divs. I've raced through it. It's I'm at the end of my whole story. Previously, it took 50 minutes. Now we're at 42 minutes. So I'm sorry. Are there any questions from anybody?
Well, I can say that I really wish I had seen this. I've known about it for a while, but I hadn't dug into it. But I really wish I'd seen it before the current site that I'm building, because it is a little over bloated and code wise, and this just looks so clean.
Yeah, maybe I can show what I did with this 24 column grid. Maybe
yeah, show us
anything
else you want to show us too. It'd be great.
Yeah, well,
I think the more examples we can see, the more we can see how it,
yeah, well, I'm not going to show you the actual site because it's not live yet.
Yeah.
But I'm not supposed to show you this. Nope. You didn't saw that. That was a secret Webflow release. So yeah, like here you can see how all these spaces are actually functioning, like how insightful it is that you know, like, okay, you can open a section, you see, okay, there's spacer XL, and spacer XL is used in every section. You open a container and you see, okay, there's a spacer L and there's a spacer L. So immediately you have this insight instead of that you have to click on something to see what kind of padding or margins are being used. And yeah, this is like, for me personally, this was like, oh, thank God, now I can finally see those things.
Yeah.
Because, you know, memory only lasts that long. And you know, if you go into a website a month afterwards and you build it and they say, can you add another page? And I don't know how it is for you guys, but for me, and everything is already erased, you know, like it's like I've emptied my memory and throw it in the trash and start a fresh website. And yeah, so for me, this is like ideal. You can just come back into a website, immediately know your logic for, okay, that was how we did it then.
Can
But yeah,
can you
let's
show us what's inside one of those layout rows? Just to see
yeah, sure, we can
how
just
that
open the whole shebang.
compares to what we're seeing. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a bit of a weird website because there are some things actually hidden that are not live yet.
Yep.
So some things are hidden without a class, but actually hidden with this thing. But yeah, so everything like here you have a personal class that is not part of the system, but all these spacers, they're everywhere. Some people don't like it because you get so many divs everywhere, but they're just div, you know, there's nothing in them. It's just
yeah, that's what I was wondering about the spacers, like versus like adding sort of like padding to a div. Like what kind of benefit do you find for adding spacer divs versus adding just kind of this padding spacers or
yeah,
margin spacers?
for me it's just this insight that I can see them, you know, and I can copy them. You know, I don't have a container and then behind the container I say margin L, let's say. And then here I only see container. I have no idea what for margins are used there.
And so the space, it's just an empty div with a certain amount of height.
Yeah, it's just an empty square. So you can use them both for vertical and horizontal layouts.
Right.
One thing I really like about the spacer approach, when you first mentioned it, I was a little bit reluctant because it's like, okay, we just have these empty divs.
Yeah,
but
I know.
It's like, oh, it's not semantic, you got all the extra cruft. But being able to update that class and say, you know what, I want my XL spacer to have a bit more breathing room, and being able to tweak that in one spot and have this cascading update across everything on the site.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus,
you just alter the the variable in there.
I was looking at the client first website because that's what I'm using on this current project, and there was they're addressing the question of empty divs with the spacers because they have their newer version uses spacers, and their point was that there's really no performance hit. You know, it's one of those things that people question, and I'm sure by comparison to the performance hit that you get with the original client first and just all of those nested classes, it's
yeah. Well, to be honest, I haven't even looked at the new one.
well, and I have to say I learned the old one and I've sort of stuck with it. So
that's the thing. You spend your time in learning a system, and then you're kind of like, but now I know it so well.
Exactly.
Another thing I really like is how you're embracing components, and it's like the separation of concerns, right? Where clients aren't worrying about CSS classes, they aren't worrying about these things that really they have no business worrying about. You build the components that you need to build to give them the options that they need to choose from to do the thing they need to do, which is usually like, we have this set of things that we can pull in to build a page layout, but we're not going down to the granularity of like, we're going to put a button in here and like a subhead in here. It's like, no, that's too much rope. That's too much freedom. Choose from these set things in the pattern library and go from there.
Yeah, exactly.
The idea that sorry, go ahead, Andre.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that idea of originally from Webflow is that everybody's going to learn how to build sites in Webflow. It's like there's a whole lot of people ain't got no time for that, right? I mean,
Mm.
they have jobs to do, and it's not building websites, it's doing whatever else it is that they get paid to do. So that's, yeah, it makes far more sense the direction that things are going.
Yeah,
Andre,
totally.
go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, no, I know. I was just wondering if Marcel looked at Mast at all. Uh, have you looked at that one?
Yeah, I have looked at Mast, and there are quite a few similarities between Mast and SML. It's funny because
Yeah,
it came
Yep.
out at the same time or almost at the same time, and there's a lot of
yeah,
similar way of thinking.
yeah.
Did
That's
you?
what I
Yeah.
noticed. It's very similar, and so other than kind of the kind of spacer divs, which either here or there, depends on what people like to do. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
very similar. I mean, I could probably use this one too, and kind of not really see any kind of major
Yeah,
difference.
and the naming is of course a bit different from the
Yeah,
classes.
of course.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
it,
I'm a
it's
bit
lightweight.
more
It's
regretting
lightweight.
everything out.
Yeah. Marcel, did you
Yeah.
use Bootstrap before? Because
No,
Mast is kind of based on the concepts of
yeah,
Bootstrap. So I wondered if that's
no,
where
I
you.
have never used Bootstrap, but
Okay.
yeah, I know. For some reason, it's all very similar.
Yeah, but it's interesting, right? I mean, it means that concept works.
Yeah, there's of course,
Right?
there's like a general logic behind things, and I think if you often enough have done a certain thing, then you start to adapt to the same logic because in the end we all end up thinking the same thing.
Mhm.
We sort of follow the same logic,
Yep. Yep.
I
Yeah, I
think.
think I've.
No, no, the caps are being used here, so they are connected to the columns. So this is like half a gap, because then they are as paddings, of course. So the way it works, I mean, it's a similar system. The way it works that you have the rows that get the minus left and right, which is half a gap,
Right.
and then the columns get the half a gap as padding inside. And the reason why that is like that is like then you have your full percentages to get your width. So otherwise,
Mm.
you always end up having to take out your gaps, and then you end up in a whole lot of mess.
Yeah, and then you end up with like 47% kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then still it doesn't work. So
No.
you need to. Now you could do it with calc, because you could do like, okay, 50% minus the gap
Hmm.
in RAMs, and then you would still end up okay, I guess. But yeah, this is just, and it's kind of handy because you have your content here, and you can, it's like when it's content, you cannot reach to your column by clicking, but because of those things, you can actually also click
Hmm.
directly on the column. Makes it a bit
Right.
handy.
Yeah.
You can't click on the RAM. The row is a bit further down.
Right.
And so
So-
that
But yeah,
section underneath, is this lining up a bit differently? Is it not doing the calc on the edges? Is that why it looks
what looks?
the one underneath that, the L1 L?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I probably did something wrong.
Or maybe it's not
Yeah.
in the row wrap, because it's the row wrap that gets rid of the little half gap.
Let me see how it is done. It should be okay.
Yeah, I think that's it. It just needs a row to.
That's
Right.
the row. Yeah, you're right. Okay, take a note, Marcel. Yeah, this is the row. Yeah, this is the row.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay.
But it doesn't actually do what it should do.
Oh, sorry. Raising a bit of a.
Yeah, it has not. Yeah, it
Slots
has not
can't,
taken this over.
and I think like that's the thing with slots. It can't really take any CSS, right? Am I wrong on
That
that?
seems to be the case. Yeah, that's very weird. Okay. Thank you, Webflow. Then we just put a row around it. Alt. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but then, oh my God.
Yeah.
Then I wonder if it takes over the row gap. Because if it doesn't take
Yeah.
over that, then how can you put in multiple things and have it cascade under it? Yeah. Always something to wish for in that flow, right? Add it to the wish list.
Yes.
But as long as if it's just an empty div with no CSS and then you add your row and columns inside, that should be fine, right? It's just that.
Yeah, but not if you do like these things. But well, it actually did took over the gap in the row.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it would be straight underneath each other. Because the thing is with this is like here you have multiple elements. Wait, if I do this differently, if I pick a different M, where is it? M0. If I pick this one and put, you're just gonna figure out, see if it works or doesn't work. Because now I have a column in the thing that should be a row. And then the question is, yeah, it does take, so it does take the row gap that's in between here. And that is something that is connected to the slot because you're putting things straight into the slot. If it would not take the row gap over, then you would have these things straight underneath each other. So, okay, some things it take, some things it doesn't. I think we can pretty surely say that it's a bug. Yeah, it's funny. So it doesn't. Maybe it is because it is custom CSS.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Maybe that's the issue here.
I think, yeah, and I think Alicia was saying at her components workshop, essentially to just as a safety thing, to just see the slots as just a div with nothing to it, really just a placeholder for it to put things in.
Right.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, it's so new still. I feel like everyone's experimenting. I think it's amazing that you, Alicia, Kenneth, and who else was there at that one are experimenting so publicly and willing to,
Yeah, it's important
make a mistake and fix them publicly. I think it's awesome because it's so new.
Yeah, it's important, I think, to do this publicly because we're all sort of in the same game and we're trying to figure out this new toy that we have gotten and we have no clue what to do with it really.
Yeah.
Well, and we're not. It's kind of like, here you go play and figure out what you want to do with it. But it's not. They're not prescribing. Here's what you do. Here's how you build with this system.
No,
because it is so individual to each developer as well, how they prefer to build, right? And the kinds of projects they have to build.
Yeah, and also, exactly. Also the kind of projects. I mean, like what I said with Lumos, I think if you are in just like dealing with one brand and making website after website following the same guidelines, then that is just a super powerful, ultra quick way of working. But if you have to adapt to a new design with every project you do, then there are other ones that are better. And the same goes for components. Like, okay, how do you see it being used with components and slots? And I think for most websites, this is like over the top to build out components with slots and give that to the marketing team. I think that's just, too much. Right. But if you have a big company with a full-blown marketing team that is all the time wanting to build new landing pages, then for them it's such a valuable thing to have, and they're definitely willing to pay for it.
Yeah, that's one of the big thing with components is you feel like when you don't know what it is, you feel like you're supposed to be including it, but the websites that will require it or that will be a good fit for it aren't. There's not that many.
Yeah.
I mean, there is, but it's just specific types of website with big teams and enough money to justify putting the hours in.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like in the past, the components, we just made components to make it easy for ourselves because we had these repetitive things, and then we've got updates, then we only need to do it in one spot, and it was updated everywhere. That was kind of how we thought about components.
Right.
And now we have this new way of thinking about components as actually being building blocks for somebody else to build complete pages with. And that's, it's just different use case.
I was wondering maybe before, because we're at the end, and it's a small thing, and I find it really interesting. If you want to show everyone the fluid responsive part of it, if you want to show if you're doing a combination of REMS time VW and how you handle that?
Yeah, I don't really handle it. That's the thing. I just work everything. I do everything in RAM. That is, I mean, that's just the way that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Oh, okay, so your different templates for the different breakpoints, it's REMs that are set essentially.
Yeah, so essentially it's just this top part in the global styles that handles the scaling. And what else is different is that I kind of already sort of have the variables make sense for that scale that you're working in. But this is actually doing the scaling. So you have this fin suite fluid la-di-da thing. Where is it? There.
Yeah.
So it's this thing. And what it does in the SML case is that this is 1920 that I picked. So here we just start with one RAM being 16 pixels on 1920, and then it scales equally down as your screen scales down to 1440. So it's important that when you get a design in 1920, that the body text is not 16 pixels, of course, because that's going to scale down to 12 or something. That's completely unreadable. So that's the only guidance that you have to give to your designer if you want to use the scalability. If not, then just pick the one that the designer has worked in, and then you have to deal with all different breakpoints yourself. But the way that it's set up is that it scales between 1920 and 1440. And then as soon as you hit mobile landscape, I think, then it becomes 16 pixels is 1 RAM again. So then it's like poof.
Right.
And then whatever happens in between there, that's up to the developer what they want to do with it. In some cases, you don't get paid to make a mobile landscape or even tablet. They just don't care, and sometimes you get paid for doing all the breakpoints, and then you have to do them all.
Yes. Yeah.
There's no way out of it.
Yeah.
But this at least makes it as simple as possible to not have to worry too much about every individual breakpoint from your desktop all the way down to this 1440 and then all the way down as well to tablet. So that just scales and that's it. And then, of course, you're still able to make adaptations for tablets if you find that it scales too small. But yeah, less to worry about. That's the main thing.
Excellent. So we had a couple of comments from YouTube. Shane Topping said the framework is so well organized. Well done, Marcel.
Thanks.
And I think we'd all agree with that. And Dale Jansen said, based on my early just wing the build in Webflow habit, a solid framework makes a big and positive difference. He's currently researching.
Yeah, if you want to know more about frameworks, I also suggest looking at the videos from Corey Moon. He's just so good at explaining why the framework is important. I mean, he's always fun to look at on video. He's just a great talker, and a very, very entertaining guy.
I was going to say, I think it's really helpful that you've got built-in components with this, because I think for those of us who aren't really using components a lot in terms of slots and things like that,
Mhm.
to sort of understand how you're building things, being able to just, dig into what you've got in the framework, I think will be really helpful for people too.
Yeah. Also in the style sheet page with component blocks,
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
have already these kind of pre-built ones, so you can also see like, okay, how
Oh,
do the slots work and what should go in what slot.
yep.
Is super helpful to get a good insight. Also, later on if the market
Mhm.
team takes over, also for them it's like, oh yeah, okay. And then they
Yep.
still have the option either to go for a full-blown component with everything ready in it and just props, or actually build it with slots.
Hmm. Yep. Great. Excellent. Well, we are at time. So if we want to, thank
If there are
you
any more
very much.
questions, you can
Yeah, any
always
more
reach out
questions?
in Twitter to me. DMs are open, or just post a tweet and tag me. That's the best way. I'm also on YouTube. If you like to see a full-blown build, there's one series that I made of 12 hours long video that I actually start from scratch, building a full-blown website. And that website I had not built before, so it's completely fresh. So you also see me getting frustrated with the design not being consistent and all those little insights. But yeah,
Always
if you
help.
want to see the whole building process of the framework, then I advise you to also take a look there. You can just find me under my name, Marcel Deelen.
Great. Excellent. Well, I think we'll have to make sure that we link to that full build series as well. I think that would be really helpful for folks. We want to thank you very much for joining us today, Marcel. I
Yeah,
think
my
it was
pleasure.
really, really good for us to learn your framework and dig into it. Um, and thank you for sharing this with us. Today's
Yeah,
workshop will be
no problem.
available for rewatching on our YouTube channel, and I highly encourage you to do that. Maggie, do you want to tell us about next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday, we're having a watch party in Toronto for those of you who can't be at the at the one in San Francisco, and who are around the GTA Toronto area. It'll be at Toronto Metro University, and it's pretty much all day, starting at 11:30. And Andy, who's here, is co-organizing, as well as Eric Unger and Patrick Corsetti. And we're looking for seeing a bunch of Canadians there and have, free food, good hangouts, and watch the keynotes from there. While Penny and Jeremy are watching it live from San Francisco.
I know. It's actually kind of going, oh man, we're gonna miss the watch party. It's like, oh wait, yeah, I know. I'll be busy at the
The
event.
real thing.
You need to wave to us. If the
Yeah.
camera passes over you, just wave.
Yeah. So next Friday, we won't be having a hangout or any kind of a Friday event, because we'll all be kind of either recovering from Webflow or still in San Francisco or whatever. But the following week, on October 25th, we're going to be having a recap, breakdown of everything we discovered and learned at WebflowConf, whether it's in person or online. So we hope you join us for that. And otherwise, have a great day. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Jeremy?